By definition, I think we're off to the worst start that you can have.
I'm just extremely happy. Can you tell by my face?
I tune a lot of cars with Holley EFI, so it's rare for me to see something I haven't already run into before, but there's always a first time for everything. Let me run you through what this truck was doing and how I fixed it.
Convenient timing.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
So while we wait for the computer to restart. Ow. There's a gigantic box of invoices and receipts. Ow. So that's how we're supposed to figure out what we got going on parts wise. And one of my suspicions on this might have just been confirmed. This is an oil drain flange for a turbo. This thing is like a bone stock 5.3, but it has IGN-1A coils on it. It's a Dominator 12-inch Pro Dash. There's a handful of other things, but it just kind of gives off the feeling and the vibe that like this thing was forced induction at one point in time and now it's not. So seeing that drain flange maybe confirm that. All right, this thing finally restarted. Let me boot everything up again.
I've said it 100 times before, but I really like these old trucks and I've been tuning a lot of them lately.
One thing I've noticed with all of these old trucks that's kind of cool is they'll generally have something somewhere on the truck that is kind of time period correct to the truck. Like the last one that came through had an old Pepsi cooler that was mounted in the bed of the truck that was turned into a battery box that I thought was pretty cool. I just found it in this one. Turns out that this was made in the exact same year that the truck was made, 1953 V2. I don't remember the last time I saw a computer that you could put a DVD or a CD, whatever the hell this thing is, into.
Well, this one's actually owned by a longtime friend of mine who I've known since I was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. He recently purchased his truck as is, but shortly after buying it, something actually happened to the ECU and it had to be sent to Holley. I'm not sure if they repaired the ECU or replaced it, but once he got the ECU back, since he wasn't able to pull the tune out of it before he sent it in, he no longer had a tune for the car, as it was, wiped from the ECU whenever they fixed or repaired it. So he was having a hell of a time getting it to run again. I guess somebody that he knows was helping him out at his house, but I'm guessing that they couldn't get it running, so they just kind of started throwing anything and everything at it to see if anything would make it any better, as it was set up kind of weird. The truck was actually towed to me after they spent a bunch of time trying to get it running without any success. I couldn't even get the truck to start to pull it into the shop, so that was a little bit of a situation, but after pulling the plugs and seeing that all 8 of them were basically spray painted black, and I want to put an emphasis on all 8 of them being black, I pulled the tune out of the ECU, and the learn table was maxed out at plus 50%. The wrong map sensor was selected, and the big one was the firing order was actually incorrect. After seeing all of the stuff that was wrong, it made me think that it was going to be kind of a quick and easy thing to just simply correct the stuff that was wrong and get it running again. But this is where things got a little bit weird.
Okay, problem number 1. Well, this is a Dominator ECU, so we have 12,802 inputs and outputs, but the transmission cooler fan is hardwired to the ignition switch. So I'd like to get that on a output. Not really a problem, just annoying. The learn table is just maxed out at 50% positive, which is what the limits are at, which is a little bit interesting because the thing is just completely like flooded with fuel, pulling spark plugs out. There's just like literally liquid gasoline in the cylinders. So running excessively rich. So I don't know if maybe we're up against a bad O2 sensor, and don't have any injector data, so we're gonna have to guess on that. They are 42 or 48.6 some shit pounds, so at least we have like a ballpark idea on the size. And probably the biggest issue so far is I don't understand how this thing ever ran, because it's set up for a 2-bar map sensor and key on, engine off. I think it was at like 50 or 60 kPa. So it appears that it actually has a 3-bar map sensor. And then it probably has like 8 to 10 degrees too much timing in it. So maybe it's a blessing that it wasn't actually running all the way. But obviously, you look at this thing, it's pretty clear that this is a cruiser, not a race car. So, well, one, we just need to get it to start. And then after that, we just got to get it to run good. So let's see if... I copied just a generic fuel table that I use on a bunch of other cars. Launched that in this. And other than that, obviously change map sensor settings, and I'm gonna turn closed loop off altogether, and then we're gonna see if it starts. And if it looks like air fuel is doing anything weird, or even the sensor's warming up, I'm gonna shut it off because I don't wanna just wipe these brand new plugs out. Sounds like the timing's off. So the air fuel is like, it's running too bad for it to really matter. It's all over the place. But if we just looked at the injector pulse width, you can see that it is nowhere remotely close. It just smells like raw fuel. So let me poke through this a little bit more and figure out what the hell is going on.
Adjusting the existing tune with all the proper settings, the truck would now start and kind of run, but it was running pretty bad and clearly not firing on all 8 cylinders. And using a heat gun to see how many cylinders weren't firing, I was actually only running on 4. And as I was kind of live in real time with the ECU, it was doing some really weird stuff. And since none of what it was doing was kind of really explainable, I kind of went with the theory that maybe the actual tune file itself was corrupt. It's not often that I see that, especially with the Dominator ECU, but that seemed like more of a possibility than anything else I could think of at that time. So I built a new file from scratch and I shot it into the ECU. And after that, the truck started and ran way better, but it still wasn't 100%. And I tested to see if we were running on 8 cylinders now, but only 7 were firing.
Got it running, but I'm not convinced it's running on 8 cylinders. Doesn't sound very healthy. With 3 times as much fuel in it as what should be in it, now it idles at 90,000 RPM. So running better, but I still haven't quite figured out what the hell is going on yet.
So if it would have like went from 4 cylinders to 8 cylinders, I could say that that makes sense, but to go from 4 to 7, that was a little bit weird. So that point kind of confirmed that just changing the tune file itself picked up 3 more cylinders, but not all 8. So something clearly weird was going on.
What the hell?
So going over the engine bay visually, all of the plug wires were on, injector wires were on and correct, cylinder head grounds and all appeared to be fine. So what I decided to do next, I only did because I've seen this correct kind of unexplainable issues with some other ECUs in the past, but I've never actually seen this with Holley. So what I did is I actually did a firmware update and built a new tune using the updated software version. And so now we had fresh firmware, fresh tune, and everything kind of all together. And at this point, the very first time that I turned the key, I think within 1/10 of a revolution, the engine fired up and was running on all 8 cylinders and was running about 10,000% better.
So this thing basically went from it wouldn't start to it ran on kind of what seemed like 4 cylinders, even though it was somehow wrecking all 8 spark plugs. And after changing files, I think it was running on 6 or 7 cylinders. And then after doing a firmware update, everything was running on 8. And now that we've actually tweaked it and tuned it a little bit, it's running like $1 million.
There's a little bit of Lamborghini in everything I do.
The main thing I've learned after doing all this stuff for so long is that anytime you think that you've seen it all, you definitely haven't. There's just always something new to learn every single day.
And from that moment forward, all of the weird issues that the software was having, all of that stuff went away. And obviously it was running on all 8 cylinders now, and everything went back to running like a normal car. At that point, I was able to put it on the dyno and tune it. And then after that, spent probably a couple of hours driving it around, and it never had any issues again. So I guess we'll have to see if any of this weird stuff comes back in the future. This type of stuff is kind of always a little bit of the chicken or the egg type of a scenario. So there's something weird going on with the car that was causing the ECU to glitch out, and ultimately what caused it to fail, or is it just a weird anomaly with the ECU? and now it's fixed forever. So I guess time will tell. Also, I can't say for certain that the firmware software update is what fixed it. It very well could have just been a weird glitch, possibly a laptop problem, coincidence, I'm just an idiot, or any combination of all this stuff possibly could have fixed it. But I figured I'd share kind of my experience, what was going on, and how I fixed it. And who knows, maybe it'll help somebody out in the future. But anyways, if you want to see another Holley EFI troubleshooting video, click on the video on the screen now. And if you're interested in learning how to tune your Holley EFI system yourself, click on the link in the description below.